G'day YouTube, my name's Candice and I am bringing you some Australian accent tips today. And today I've decided to focus on common mistakes that Americans will make when they're trying to sound Australian. Now I live in the United States and what tends to happen, and I don't mind, it's a lot of fun, but what tends to happen if you live in a country where you sound a little bit different to what the common dialect might be, people can't help but mimic your accent. And it's just because they haven't heard it before or they like it and they try and work out, how do I make that sound? And so often when I'm talking to people, they'll just start mimicking my accent back to me. So I've had a lot of opportunities to hear US Americans try their hand at the Australian dialect. And there's a couple of common mistakes that pop up almost every time. So I'm going to touch on those in this video. Now, before I get into it, as always, hit that subscribe button. If you hit subscribe, it'll let you know when I have new videos coming out, and it will also help me out because it supports my channel. And it's totally free. Doesn't cost a thing, just a little click, okay? And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. So, my American friends. The first mistake that US Americans will commonly make when they're trying to sound Australian is that they will turn the short A sound into an E sound. So for example, the word back, they might say beck. And it's a dead giveaway when they're trying to sound Australian. Can you hear the difference if I say A, E? So the A sound is a lot more open and wide. The E sound is flatter, okay? A, E. I think the reason for this is because in a standard American dialect, that E sound is actually used for words where an Australian would use an A sound. For example, the word parrot, when said with an American dialect, comes out like parrot, parrot. The same with the name Aaron. The name Aaron doesn't really seem to exist here because it turns into Aaron. But to me, the word Aaron sounds like the name that starts with an E. You can see the confusion. So just be really cautious if you are a US American speaker and you're trying to sound Australian. Go back and look at my short vowel sound video and really focus on that short A sound and make sure that it's not sliding into an E sound. Parrot. Same with apparently. This is also, if you're Australian and watching this, if you spend time in the United States, that's one of the first words that ends up sounding a little bit American because I've heard people say apparently. Can you hear the difference? Apparently, apparently. A, E. It's actually really slight, but it's that sound that will make someone go, oh, they're not Australian. Ah. Okay? The second common mistake that US Americans might make when they're trying to sound Australian is the shape of the long O sound. Now, I will give you this. The Australian O is one of the most difficult sounds to master in the Australian dialect and quite possibly in any other dialect in English because it's so weird. So weird. But let me give you a couple of tips on this one, okay? Specifically, if you naturally speak with a US dialect. So the long O sound, if you haven't already watched the long vowel sound video, I'll put a link in. The long O sound shows up at the end of video 2 in the long vowel sound series. A brief recap, the long O has 4 sounds in it. A, O, U, E. And the E is just like saying a Y or a Y sound, like in the word yes. So that position of your tongue where you would make a Y sound, can you feel if you say Y or yes? The back of your tongue is high, E, yes. So that is the end of the O sound. Your tongue needs to do the work. The difference between an American O and an Australian O is that in a US American O, no, the tongue actually pulls back into the mouth. No. So if you make that O sound, if you feel it, your tongue is being pulled back into your mouth. So what US Americans will often do is they'll mix those two things. They'll start off saying, ow, and then they'll pull their tongue back. It kind of turns into a oh. It's a very strange sound, and it's not really either of the accents. It's kind of a combination of the two. So just really be careful when you're working on your O sound that the end of the O, your tongue doesn't pull back, and you just lift up the back of your tongue to make that E sound. Okay? That's the shape that your mouth should be in. Now, the first common mistake, the A to the E, also comes into play with this O sound. Because the beginning of the O starts on an open-mouthed ah, ow, oh. Be careful that you're not starting on an ew. Can you hear that? Ew. So that's the sound that a lot of Americans will make when they're trying to do an Australian accent. So the two things in that one, make sure you're not starting on an and that it's an open-mouthed ah, and make sure your tongue doesn't pull back, but it lifts up instead. Oh. Okay? The third common mistake that Americans might make when they're trying to sound Australian is a bit specific, but I hear it a lot. I guess this is just a word that's very commonly used, and that is the word one. So if you're counting, or if you are the winner of something and you say that I won, I know that both of these words are spelled with an O, but we don't say won. If you say won, that's actually a dialect of England. So we actually pronounce that word with an A sound, one. That's a very specific one. And number 4, a big difference between an Australian dialect and a US dialect is that Americans will use their jaw a lot, which is why when they're speaking, the mouth is working a lot harder. I say often, everyone says that the Australian dialect is a bit lazier. So think of it as though rather than allowing your jaw to do all of the work, use your lips. So just make sure that when you're speaking, my lips are working hard, but my jaw doesn't work as hard as it might if I was trying to sound American. So just remember, use your lips, and then hopefully that'll help you out a little bit. Okay? Thank you very much for watching this video. Go ahead and hit subscribe. I do a lot of accent tutorials. I also do some fun slang videos. So lots of new content coming your way. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.